Hey Laura, alright, so this past life reading has to do with what you mentioned regarding vertigo. So that's the intention we set, to see what would come through that might explain what you're going through when it comes to that. And as I was shuffling, just mentioning, whatever unusual stuff comes through. Shuffling is the idea that it felt like there were two lives coming through pertaining to any issue that you have having to do with like dizziness or heights or like looking down suddenly or like a sudden movement or what's it called, like not feeling leveled, that kind of thing that's associated with the intention we set. So there's a couple of lives. And we're going to go through and just see how this turns out, because I don't know if both lives want to play out in its entirety, or if I'm just going to mention a little bit of one and focus mainly on the other, okay? So just bear with me. But what we're doing is we're going to where you were, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day with the relationships and feelings involved, another important day with relations and feelings, and we'll get the death and the lesson learned with hints of time throughout. And yeah, the background's a little different than the others, so bear with me. I'm not in my usual place. So what I want to mention is that one of the aspects that came through is male, the other aspect was female, but it felt like they were in the same vicinity of time, a time period. So I'd like for you to just try to be open-minded when it comes to certain ideas like parallel lives, as in you could have multiple existences in the same time period, just in different parallel universes going on, so to speak. So go ahead and just check out the term multiverse and look into parallel universe, and it's just like your aspect, living out different lives at the same time, essentially. And that is a concept that is part of my belief system, so that's why I feel like it's coming through here. But it also might be coming through because you might be dancing with your own belief system regarding that concept, or it needs to be brought up to your attention to look into for whatever reason, but for a reason. Otherwise, it wouldn't be brought up, because this is not a usual thing to be brought up during a reading. So, all right. So what was interesting was where we're going as we start, and don't forget, I'm just going to relay images and impressions and just try to make connections where you can. I'll try to help how I can. But where we're going to start already, the card here is the Nomad card, and I get this card when either one, I'm looking at someone who travels around a lot, or two, when there's like not a home base, when there's just no home base as far as even like the place doesn't exist anymore, or there's just not one substantial place for the location of this reading, so to speak. So like we've gotten gypsies that travel before, things like that. But honestly, this card, in relation to the feeling of looking at a couple of lives, I feel like we're looking at this card because it's not one place. It's not one place as in it's not one life. Like I feel like, again, it's the two lives. Okay, so first of all, let's just start with this one life coming through. So the male aspect, this guy, the feel of it is like a worker, like consider a construction worker who would work, let's say, if you've ever seen a picture where they built the Sears Tower in Chicago, because that's the imagery they're bringing through, which means you could have been a worker on the Sears Tower itself, or a worker building a very tall building, even a building that has like a reputation for its height or whatever it might be, but it might not be Sears Tower, it could be something else, but that's the image they're using because that's in my mind library, so to speak, so they're going to use that. But your job is going to see if it resonates with you, even just like the idea of Chicago. Does Chicago resonate with you? One, I don't know the date that the tower was built, but there's a famous picture of these workers sitting at the tower at the top, eating lunch, and there's no harnesses on, and they're out on a limb, and it's like crazy. It's a crazy photo, and they're just perfectly calm. Find that photo, go look up that photo for the Sears Tower, workers eating lunch, whatever, and see what you feel when you see that kind of photo of workers just sitting at the top of, like, above the entire city with no harness, that kind of thing. See how you are emotionally affected by that photo, And if, you know, if you resonate, great. And if not, that's fine. Again, tuck in the back of your mind if you don't resonate. But that's one imagery that I wanted to share with you in regards to this. So the connection you can make, one, not just, you know, Chicago or the Midwest, or the idea of tall buildings, the idea of heights, free falling, like what is your relationship with that? Like, because just because, you know, just because someone has vertigo or they get dizzy or they don't, you know, it doesn't mean they don't like heights. Like you could actually like heights, or even the idea of heights could be like fun for you. You know what I mean? Just because your body reacts like a certain way doesn't mean your mind reacts the same way. So you want to see, you want to like, whether, I mean, I don't know if you know it, if you've noticed it about yourself yet, but play with the idea, like when you feel vertigo, is your mind calm and your body reacting? Or is it your mind, is your mind as chaotic as your body? You know what I mean? Like what happens exactly? Because here we're looking at, again, this construction work. So then we're also looking at someone who is also, we want to make a connection with the male aspect in itself, the worker aspect, male worker, typical male worker kind of thing. I want to say like lower middle class, but probably more on the lower end. Like this is someone who is probably not highly respected in the streets, so to speak. But this is someone, it feels like there's something very like task driven about this person, but also like simplistic. I'm just letting things come through because I'm trying to help with the connections as well. So a connection, for example, with this kind of thing, when it's showing this kind of life, could be the idea of simplicity in itself. Like, do you ever think about if life were as simple as, is almost like, do you ever think about what life would be if you took a simpler route? And I'm not saying you don't live a simple life. I'm saying like a simple as in like, I want to say like no property ownership, no family, no travel, no, not many interests, just kind of like go to work and come home. And does that idea bother you? Does that idea give you the heebie-jeebies? Like that whole very simplistic routine, nothing new, just kind of status quo kind of thing. How does that affect you? Or is that something you've seen in your life? Maybe your dad, maybe your, you know, a friend growing up or a family member where you're like, I don't want that to be my life. Or it impacted you in some way that made you make sure that you are going to follow your heart or find interest in life. So basically we're getting around to the idea of connecting with the idea of making sure that life is interesting to you. Because what's interesting too, now that we're talking about that, what's being brought up is the image of him sitting up there that high up. And then the idea like that in itself is actually quite interesting. Not a lot of people can do that, and yet he's just a construction worker. And I don't say that like rudely. What I'm saying is like to the common person, it's like, oh, he's a construction worker. Okay. You know what I mean? But he's not any construction worker. He is building the Sears Tower, and he's all the way up there eating lunch above the entire city. You know, he's high, like he's higher than anyone else eating lunch that would pay so much money to eat in a high-rise restaurant at the time. You know what I mean? So there's something about finding interest in the simplicity as well. So now we're coming around to that idea where there might be a message in there for you that if you're finding yourself bored, or you're finding yourself becoming more routine with things, or things are keeping you in a routine, that you're still in control of finding it interesting, because it's all about your perspective and the efforts with which you tweak your perspective in order to make things interesting, even if you have to use your imagination. But again, it's this just simple idea of like construction worker above the entire city, no harness, eating lunch. Like it's an iconic picture of someone that no one knows. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a huge statement. Like it's a big deal. This iconic picture that everyone knows the picture, but they actually don't know who that guy is or who those people are in the picture. But without those people in the picture, that picture would not be iconic. So this also speaks to people like you and me and everyone not realizing your worth and not realizing the value that you're adding to the whole picture. So this comes up too, because a lot of times, especially people who are sensitive and they're healers and they want to help people, they're never able to quite see the impact that they make. And a lot of times they're not supposed to. And a lot of times that's okay because you have a big heart, you know, and it's not about that. It's not about recognition, but validation is nice sometimes. So I feel like this is actually being shown to you more as we're moving along as validation, to let you know that you have way more value than even you're giving to yourself, or that you feel others are giving to you, like family member, whatever it is. You are as valuable as that secret place inside of you tells you you are. Because your higher self already knows how big of a spirit you are. Like, it knows how grand and amazing you are. It's just you don't let it out enough. You don't acknowledge that part enough because, one, we need evidence. As human beings, we like to see evidence of our greatness, right? Well, I can't pat myself on the back unless I see an accomplishment. That kind of thing, when really you should be patting yourself on the back just for loving your family. And it's not just, it's like that's a big deal. There are people who cannot love their family like you love your family. You know what I mean? Like, so things like that, like the unseen things, it's time for you to start refocusing and looking from a different perspective on the unseen things and kind of making them seen in your own way, if that makes sense. Giving it value and not waiting for anyone else to give it value. And not waiting for anyone to give you permission to give yourself value, if that makes sense. Start patting yourself on the back. If you need to start saying affirmations every day, say affirmations every day. Sorry, cracking the knuckles. Gotta crack the knuckles. So that is, to me, that's a healthy, powerful message. And I hope you can feel that. I hope you understand that about yourself. The worth and the value. Just like that iconic picture. Your loved ones, their lives would not be their lives without you. No matter what anyone says. Like, that's it. It's like their lives are the iconic picture. Like, you are making it so that your family, the people you touch, you know, that kind of thing, like that makes it the iconic picture. It's just you might not see yourself in the picture. You just, you know what I mean? If that makes sense. So just consider that. I can't believe we're still on the first card here. Okay. But that's one aspect. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And then the other aspect coming through felt like it was around the same time period. I'm not really sure when the time period is, but in my head, it's like the 1920s, like almost like a roaring 20s kind of feel, kind of thing. So if you've ever had a connection to that time period, that would be that. But also go ahead and Google when Sears Tower was built and see what time period that was, and if it hit the 1920s at all, maybe 1930s, but it does feel like we're looking at 1920s. And I know it's kind of weird with the whole parallel existence thing if you're not used to that, but again, go look it up, sit with it, process it, meditate. Doesn't mean you have to believe it, but it's just like a little food for thought. But we're looking at a female life in the second life coming through, and it feels like a female life, and this is someone who is at the you know, it feels like, I don't know if, I think this is a thing where, like, women are hired to go to parties to look pretty and to, like, liven up the party. It feels like that aspect is coming through. Like, you're a woman who's, like, just beautiful and, like, spunky, and you chose this lifestyle for, it feels like it's like choosing the lifestyle for money and a little bit of glam. And you're hired to go to parties, and it feels like the parties, there's a lot of music and there's a lot of movement, and it's always at the top. It's always at, like, the top floors. It's the top lounges, the top like VIP clubs kind of thing. It feels elite. So it's almost like you're part of an elite group or agency where they hire you to come and liven up the place and look pretty. And so I'm trying to see if, because this is connected with vertigo as well, and I'm not sure if it's the dancing or the movement, but the imagery in my head is like the lights are flickery, like it's almost like it's like a chaotic, it's like chaotic. There's music, it's chaotic, but it's also glamorous, and it's also like, it's not like rock, you know, it's not like rock and roll, it's like, it's almost jazzy. So I'm trying to understand like where the chaos comes from, because honestly, it feels like it's in her mind. So this is someone, I feel like this woman is actually like an empath, and she absorbs everybody's energies, but at this time period she doesn't really get it. She doesn't know why it's hard for her, but she also enjoys the lifestyle because where she comes from feels like it's lower class too, and it feels like she's making her way. And this is like, she's like around people in an environment that she would never have access to if she had stayed and maintained where where her family, the class, like the social class would have kept her at. So it's like she's like, okay, I'll go and I'll be really uncomfortable because this is the life, the lifestyle, this is the life, like that kind of thing. Like this is what everybody wants. So we're looking at someone who wants to attain something that isn't actually speaking to her heart. It just looks good to everyone. So we're looking at someone who is very concerned with looking like she is higher class and attractive and desirable. And so this can translate into your current life with connections that have to do with, one, if you're an empath and you absorb energy and the energy of a room or a crowd, you might not like crowds. You might have trouble going to the grocery store just when things are crowded and there's a lot of people. If that's the case, let me suggest that you start to wear earphones or earbuds so you can tune out everyone, or shield yourself with visualization techniques if that's the case. But this also has to do with connections with how you feel about your image and how people see you. And it's human. It's human. It's a girl thing. We all care. So if you have struggled with any eating disorders or your image in any way, that would be a connection here. The opposite kind of connection would be if you just do not care at all and blah, you know what I mean? Like, but if you do care and image is an issue, and you might be like very just, if you're like hyper aware of how you hold your body or how people see you or what people think of you, yeah, also having to do with like movement and maybe even your sense of style or dress attire, whatever it might be, having just anything having to do with image. Where does that fit into your life, and where, if at all, where is it still holding you back? Because it's the feeling of like, yeah, it's probably gotten a lot better over time. As you get older, you get more comfortable in your skin kind of thing. But where would it be holding you back now? And I feel like that would be related or tied to any vertigo as a way of almost like if vertigo, it's like if vertigo was an earthquake, the tide to where any image issues you have would be the tremor of the underground, like the thing that starts the earthquake, it starts tremoring. It's a trigger to the earthquake. That's what it feels like. So it feels like that. So it feels like the trigger to the earthquake is like the image issue, if there's an image issue. So I want you to just process and see what comes to mind either now or what comes to mind as you start to maybe watch your routine habits, your thought patterns having to do with your appearance, how you appear, even verbally, like how you speak, like, you know, like how people hear you, how people see you. It's about external, like how the external world views you, the weight that you put on that in whatever way. That needs to be looked at. It just needs to be looked at. If anything, it can simply just be to where you acknowledge it. Because it might be the kind of thing where people, they say, oh no, this isn't a problem for me, or it's not a problem anymore, or it used to be, and it's much better now. And so it's just a little bit of like making sure you're doing little reality checks with things that might be holding you back regarding like how you feel about yourself based on how you think others are perceiving you. And that's that in a nutshell. So I know this is a lot for like just starting out here, but these are all just, it's just coming up for you to sit with, and of course it's all supposed to be helpful. So let's go over here. This is the healer card, and I feel like we're pulling this because it feels like it's actually pertaining to the reading. It doesn't feel like it has to do with like an occupation, because we just went over these 2 occupations for these aspects of you. And I feel like, and now my head's getting totally lightheaded, it's so weird. It feels like this card is for you. It's almost like a message in itself to make sure that you understand that this kind of reading is for your healing. It is entertaining and it's interesting, but ultimately it's for you to use to self-heal, and that's done with introspective work, belief systems, trust, you know, listening to your higher self, your intuition, that kind of thing. And just like allowing these things to come up and to surface that might feel kind of icky or uncomfortable, but ultimately are some truths that want to come to the surface so that you can face them, acknowledge them, and let them go. And that's the kind of thing where when you say you have like something like vertigo, if it's tied to a past life, it's very likely it can be taken care of by yourself, because let's say like vertigo is kind of like a type of energy in your body, and it's like a patterned energy. If you break that patterned energy up and release it, you never know what can happen. It may be able to clear up, you know, like that kind of thing. So you just want to, that's why it's, the inner work is so important, because that's where you start to see external changes happen when you do the inner work. It starts in, and then you see the results on the outside, if that makes sense. But it's again, this kind of work is not always easy, and it's not always fun, but it is always interesting. So just keep that in mind. But the healer card comes up because it's just speaking to you right now. Like, you know you're a healer. Like, you know that. So it's like, whatever you might feel like you've been putting off, and whatever's coming to mind when I say that, that should probably be your first step to take when it comes to doing some of the inner development work that you want to do. But keep that in mind. Keep making connections where you can here. Keep making connections where you can with this. And we're going to go to this day here. So this is the move, 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 let's go card. Meaning there's some movement happening. The people might be leaving. This is the soulmate card. And this card here is kind of like a lonely, nostalgic-y kind of feel. And we're still, what's happening is it's the girl's life coming through now. More than anything, the young woman, I should say. And we're looking at someone that has either black hair or a wig that's black. It's the shortcut black wig, like chin length hair, but it's black as midnight hair, which whatever connection you make with that, it's a detail coming through for a reason. We are looking at someone who has one very special item that she has with her, and she's known for it, and it feels like it is a fur wrap. I don't know why these details are coming through like this, but however you connect with it, it's a fur wrap, and she takes so much pride and joy. It feels like it's a piece that she can have and claim her status with, and that she worked for. And that's her, and it's her, I think maybe her most expensive possession, whatever it might be. It's very special. So whatever connection it could be that you have you enjoy the idea of like fur coats, or maybe you have one, or maybe you have a what's it called when the family pass things, an heirloom. Maybe you have an heirloom that when I talk about this piece she has, a treasured heirloom that you have, it could be a direct connection like that. Or this could be a message for you to treat yourself. That if there's something that you saw, it's the holidays too, so I mean, if there was something you saw that you really wanted and you were like, no, I have to get gifts for the kids and my friends and this, I can't treat myself, the holidays are for other people's gifts, that kind of thing. If there was something that you saw, allow me to suggest that if you're able to go and treat yourself and go get it. Or if you come across something that you just feel so pulled to and it would make you so happy just to have, to get it. and to not put too much emphasis on the idea of like, oh, I don't need these material things, I don't need that. It's like, no, just like if you love something, it's okay to love something, even if it's a material thing that has no purpose. If it makes you happy, there are some items in the world that we are supposed to just have because it's like a gift from the universe presenting itself. Like, here, we know that this would make you happy and you vibe with it. Like, just treat yourself. That's the message that would come through from that. Okay, so the move card and the soulmate card. Okay, so what's happened here is it feels like this young woman is going through a interesting thing with a young man that I want to say is almost on the verge of a fiance, but who, okay, so there's a movie that they're bringing up and you might want to see it. It's called Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. Miss Pettigrew Lives for a Day. And if you feel like checking out that movie, it takes place over the course of, I think, like 24 hours of a woman who is living this high life, and she's a singer, but she's with rich men. And she's using but there's one man that she actually loves, and he's poor, but they're soulmates, and you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. So that's what we're seeing here is this, it feels like a triangle at least, where it's like her work, and this guy. And her work includes like many men. It doesn't mean she's necessarily like sleeping around with many men, but like giving her attentions and affections to many men as part of the job. And she has, you know, she's worked hard for this position, and it's good. And it gives her a very fulfilled feeling. And at the same time, it feels like a young man who is just like hanging on as much as he can, knowing that he just wants her for, you know, he wants a life with her in the way that she ran away from a life like that. Because it's like she sees this man and he reminds her of where she came from, and yet she's so drawn to him that she can't say no or push him away. And in fact, it feels like the kind of thing where she actually has to put effort in to keep him there, even though he wants to be there. It's just like there's a jealousy thing. So it feels like a very hard time of prioritizing at this time, because it's a time in her life when if it was 10 years later, it wouldn't be an issue. But because she's in the prime of her life, and that's the reason she's able to have the job that she wants, it's a very hard situation where it's like kind of like it's like an ultimatum up in the air that's not a definite thing, like choose me or choose your work, but it's like it's there, like she knows it, and she wants to give him what he wants, but she also has learned that she needs to prioritize herself in order to get to where she wants to be too, and she has worked so hard for it. So this is an interesting kind of concept. Any connections you could be making to this would be the idea of where you are prioritizing yourself and where you are allowing yourself to prioritize others above you. And the thing is, you know, I'm always about self-love. Put yourself first, because it's not selfish and you deserve to be happy. However, for some people, prioritizing someone else that they know that there is such a soul connection there. Let's say someone is sick. Let's say someone has just like problems, you know, like there's problems that they just can't handle alone. Like it could be like PTSD, you know, and they come home from the war and you're married to that person, and it's like you love them so much that helping them, even if it means prioritizing them over you, still makes you happy. So it's all about your happiness. So if you're prioritizing others above you, even if they're loved ones, but that doesn't make you happy, like truly happy, and you have to like be honest with yourself, then you need to start filtering in things that make you happy first and prioritizing yourself so that you don't build in any resentment. But if taking care of others or prioritizing others does make you feel happy and fulfilled, then there's no problem. But ultimately, if you notice, it comes down to what's making you feel happy and fulfilled. So it can be putting you first, or it can be putting others first. But ultimately, you've got to feel happy and fulfilled. Don't let that go by the wayside. Don't push that second. So just keep that in mind. And let's see. So keep making connections where you can with this. Because this, they haven't shown me how it's played out, only that it's really tricky right here. So let's see if it develops. What goes on? All right, so here is the conquered, they have come, and the welcome card. And this is the soul group card. And the soul group card pertains to people who are in your soul group. You see them time and time again in different lives to learn lessons from. And this is the peaceful, just rolling right along card. So I'm seeing what's going on here. So it feels like it feels like we're looking years later, and it feels like this triangle thingy plays out for a while. Like it feels like you both hold on, and have hope that things will eventually come to a more peaceable arrangement. And it feels like it does, because it feels like there is a disrupt. And it feels like when the conquered, they have come card, the welcome card, this feels like war. So this feels like there's a war, and the war disrupts your job. So it feels like there's no control over it, and your person is there to catch you. And it feels like he's been working, it feels like for the time that he couldn't keep you down, like keep you as, like for the time that he couldn't get you to agree with him, he's been working so hard to make money and become stable and be good enough, so to speak, to like keep you happy and feel like content with just being with him. Like he's been working so hard, and it's not unfair or anything like that. These are rational. Both people have rational level heads when it comes to this, but it feels like the war cuts off all this excess like partying, so to speak, for lack of better words. And because of it, it feels like you and your fellow girlfriends, because it feels like it's a group of girls, like almost like an agency. It feels like there's something where it becomes an agency for something else having to do with supporting the war. So that your job becomes, it's not so much about being in a lounge and being a pretty girl and like doing what you know, like partying, but it's more about like, I want to say it's almost like ambassadors to represent something having to do with the war, like send your canned items here, and you'd be on like a poster like that, like a model. So it's almost like the girls became models, and so it feels like you continue into modeling, and it's a quieter life than this is, at least. Like it's not like crazy like nighttime kind of things. It becomes like just a steady modeling job, and it feels like you and your person come together and continue, and you're happy because it is unconventional, and yet you're still getting the traditional roots that you're used to. So it's a very balanced life, which is really lovely, and just rolling right along. So this feels really good, and I feel like it pertains to anything that you have questions about in your current life where you're feeling unbalanced. The balance will come when you stick to your guns about what makes you happy and what you want in order to make your own life fulfilled. And then you just organically grow with the process. And that's what's happening here, is like, she's like, I worked hard. I'm not going to give in because this makes me happy and this is my path right now. You're welcome to stick by my side and see what happens because I love you. And that happens, and then circumstances outside of her control, which is the organic process, happen that maneuvers their life so that it becomes it's this equal balance, a little bit of what she wants, a little bit of what he wants, and then both of them are happy. It's wonderful. So it just comes about it's about trusting the process and trusting your intuition when your gut is telling you what you want to do, what is exciting to you, and what is urging you and pulling at you. And if you take steps towards that and you don't let other people hold you back, and you don't hold yourself back, and you just see organically how it evolves, that's going to create a balance that can make you feel very happy and grounded. And I feel like, again, this is bringing us back to the vertigo thing when I say that. The balance is going to keep you grounded. So we're getting a formula for you to try to follow your excitement, your gut, the urges, the pulls to what's going to make you feel happy and fulfilled and make you feel grounded. And as that organic process evolves and you become more grounded, you just might be able to see a change up in any issues you have regarding vertigo. You see how that kind of works? It's kind of interesting how that works. So just keep that in mind and keep making connections where you can, okay? Now over here is the Burn Baby Burn card. This is the death card. So what I'm seeing here simply is that it feels like you smoked a lot and that lessened your life longevity. So just cut some years off your life. So I don't feel like it's like lung cancer or anything like that. I mean, it could have been, but it doesn't feel like it's painful. It just feels like smoking cut off years of your life. So in your current life, if you have an aversion to smoke, or if you are, not just for yourself, but like others, like you just might not like smoke, the smell of smoke, cigarettes, whatever, might put you off a lot. Or you could have come back and you just enjoy smoking because it didn't hurt you, it just cut your life short. You see, so it can have different effects. So just see how however that theme of smoking plays into your life. Yeah, okay. So there's that. And then the lesson card, this is the Love Others card. Okay? So the Love Others card, what's interesting is here you are so good about loving yourself here that it feels like it's supposed to be spilling over into your current life to continue loving yourself. But the Love Others card is going to come in because, again, what's being brought up is the balance. It's almost vital that you learn the balance of loving yourself while you're loving others. It's the prioritizing thing, but creating a balance in the prioritizing between yourself, loving yourself, and loving others, which can be very difficult when you have kids and a family and people relying on you. You know, like, I get it, but you still need to make the effort to balance loving yourself and showing yourself that you care about you and prioritizing yourself, as well as those that you love. Okay? Alright, so keep making connections where you can when it comes to the Love Others card and self-love. And anyway, there is your past life. I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope you're able to make some connections, and I hope that resonates, some of it at least resonates with you when it comes to the vertigo issue, okay? So happy holidays, and I'll talk to you soon.